Sure. Oh, okay. All right. I think we're live.
Live. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. Live at Epiphan, episode something. I've lost
117. Live at Epiphan.
Seriously? 117?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We missed 111. Whoa.
Did we?
Well, we didn't miss it. I just don't remember celebrating it.
There's a splash. Cameron producer's a little slow on the uptake here. But he does have a jingle, so that's a plus.
So thanks for joining us today. This is the show where we talk about live video technology. We talk about kind of video production stuff in general. And we always like to hear what you have to say. So make sure you chime in on the comments. George here is monitoring comments.
Primarily YouTube.
He is encouraging you to comment on YouTube. But we're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn.
That's it.
Google Plus.
No, that's YouTube. Yeah, but I am watching, obviously, chat from YouTube. I might look at Facebook, but our chat aggregate thing doesn't do the LinkedIn and the Twitter stuff at the moment, so I can't look at those. But I mean, probably
say hi anyway. Yeah,
no one uses LinkedIn anyway. Anyway, but yes, there's a bunch of people saying hi in chat. Tim Trott Productions is saying hi. Marta in Palo Alto saying hi. David Larson saying hi. Linda saying, "Oh, does the teaser pick we would get George and George today?" Indeed, you do. Get to
double the
experience the George and George show disaster that is today. Fixed Assets saying hi, saying lucky I'm here because women's soccer is on. That's a good point. I think in general we're all lucky that we're not just doing that and we're distracted temporarily. I don't know. I'm not paying attention.
Oh, we need to chime in and let us know how Canada's doing.
Were they playing the Netherlands today? Maybe.
I don't know. That's so I asked.
Hey, yeah, I haven't been paying attention. I apologize.
Yeah.
And Faithful Mess saying hello. So.
Hello, everybody. So.
Perfect.
Today's topic. George knows nothing about it.
Yeah, I get to play the dumb guy today.
He gets to play the dumb guy.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about remote camera production. A little bit about remote video production in general.
Yeah.
But specifically about how you might want to control a camera remotely. We have been looking into this because we think it's something that might come, there might be more of it, right?
Yeah, it definitely seems like a very emerging technology in the AV space.
And just to clarify, by remote, we don't mean like, hey, there's your camera over there and you're standing over here. We mean truly remote. As in you're on one side of the country and you're controlling cameras in another studio or event space or lecture hall or anywhere else, somewhere completely different. And it would be, so we'd call this over IP. So camera control over IP.
Or I mean, I guess there's a lot of different ways to look at it.
Long cables.
Really, really long cables. Yeah, I mean that's all the internet is. Really, really long cables.
Yeah.
But you have a whole list of stuff that I don't even understand what most of it is that you were going on about.
Great. I was kind of hoping you'd chime in, and I'd cue it up for you and say, "There's this half-baked technology which I know very little about." George, take it away.
Yeah, I wasn't really listening this morning when we did a prep for this show.
Oh, you weren't listening?
No.
You're a very convincing listener.
I am good at faking it.
Are you listening right now?
No. No, I'm still recovering from last week, I'm going to be honest. Last week was exhausting at Infocom, and so I'm still trying to get my head back.
What day is it? Thursday,
back in the game, yeah.
That's 6 days ago, George. Come on.
I know. It was rough. It was rough. The heat down there baked my brain, and it's done.
You're good in Canada here. That's right.
Exactly. Okay. It's cold. So, why? That was my question this morning.
Why would you want to control a camera remotely?
Easy question.
This is an easy question because you don't want to send a camera operator to an event space to control a camera because it's expensive.
Is it?
Sure. Just sending anybody anywhere is going to be more expensive, especially if it's a one-off event to have to require staff to come in. And these are all highly trained staff, so it would allow you to have a team of remote operators somewhere controlling these cameras. And it would also allow you to scale up quickly. Like you could quickly access someone who's really good at controlling cameras and doing that, and they could be like on demand. You can call them and say, "Hey, can you do this thing in an hour?" And they don't have to like travel to your site and set up and do it.
Yeah, all right.
You look like you're skeptical.
Well, I mean,
and that's fair, but
yeah, I mean, it's true. Paying for people's flights, accommodation, time, all those things definitely add up. I suppose if people don't ever have to leave their cubicle, then things are cheaper.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to do it one way or the other. It might just mean that in future, you have a camera infrastructure that's set up so that it can be controlled completely locally, or you can call somebody in who can just just like you do with your computer right now.
Right.
You all the time are calling in for tech support, right?
Well, I don't. People
all
call
the
me.
time.
People call me.
And they can remote access into George's computer and
No,
fix
they
his
can't.
problems. Like he can't get his mail application to work.
No, they absolutely cannot.
And so they help him, and
No, they do
we
not.
think there's a future where people could help camera operators as well for the same kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Just like you get help all the time.
I do not ask for anyone's help.
It's very sensitive.
But no, I understand
Yeah,
that. That
yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But what are some of, there must be drawbacks to that, though. Otherwise, this would have been a
there's
thing already.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
everyone would already do it if it was so easy.
Well, the biggest drawback is there's actually this thing that you do with cameras where you physically move them in spaces.
Like with this.
And that's hard to do remotely. So we're going to talk about some of the ways today where you might actually physically be able to move your cameras around. Or in the case like this PTZ camera, you could at least choose what it's looking at. So we did a little experiment a couple of weeks ago where we went to this conference. And we decided to try to do some remote camera control. We got a little video clip just of some of the stuff we were trying to do there, which we'll play. Actually, I need to play.
You need to play. When camera goes to the picture-in-picture.
Yeah. So this is some footage of an event where we were at, and we set up some remote equipment so that we could. I'm getting some signals from the producers. What's the problem, Cameron?
Move your mouse.
Oh, my mouse. Okay.
Your mouse cursor.
So one of the things that what we did is we set up a bunch of PTZ cameras here. This is a PTZ Optics NDI camera, one of the ones that we used. And we built our own PTZ controller that we could control kind of via Perl, our Perl systems, and it would give us complete control over where this camera was pointing at. So if we saw the people on stage at this event were moving over to the left, we could shift the camera to the left, or we could turn to the right, or we could zoom out. You can see here some pictures of our controllers sort of operating we were doing remote switching as well, because we had multiple cameras set up. And it was an interesting experiment to learn like if it's a feasible idea to do remote camera control and sort of get our feet wet in this space. So like that was in terms of like solutions for this problem, well, maybe it's not a problem, but this concept, like how you would do a remote production of a camera, the first most obvious thing is to get a PTZ control camera, which is great because they're already built with infrastructure that you can control either with a, here, I'll put this above the comment.
Yeah, the Visca controller. Yeah, or other. There's other types as well.
So this is a
control.
Visca controller that you can connect to a camera like this. In our case, we had basically a piece of software that allows us to do all of this kind of control and do it remotely. Right. There was a comment there from David Larson, I think, about how you need crew on the ground to actually make adjustments, and you're totally right. Like you can't just expect everything to work flawlessly. So maybe this concept works well in a really tested environment where you do the same event all the time and you've got cameras mounted up in remote locations where you don't ever really touch those cameras.
I guess that's one of the big drawbacks of this remote is that you have no peripheral vision.
Sure you do.
Well, come on, that's not realistic.
No, that's right. Yeah.
But one of his points there was, when the crew is on the ground, they can see what's happening around and adapt.
Yeah, if there's any variables in your event or your production, it's really maybe not so feasible to do.
Right.
So anyway, this was one option, is to use some kind of an IP-based software controller to control PTZ cameras. But what I have since realized is that there's a lot of events where you don't necessarily want a PTZ camera. I should say PTZ, excuse me. It's PTZ,
You're
but
just
my
revealing your
Canadianism,
deeper Canadian side. That's
it's pretty deep, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not like an angry Z, it's just it comes out.
Yeah.
PTZ.
You're the only one. It's fine. In this context.
Yeah. So PTZs, that's one option. But I sometimes like a camera with a big, juicy sensor, 1-inch sensor, and like the camera that we're using today. I'm a camera nerd, so I want to use cinema cameras or broadcast cameras that have more options available than a camera like this. Ooh, we've got some funny artifacting here. What's going on there, Cameron?
What happened?
Oh, that was some chroma key weirdness that we just saw.
Yeah, Cameron's having a good time over there. So I guess pros and cons of PTZ camera. Pro, very compact, easy to mount to anything, including upside down on ceilings. And
it has built-in like software control for all of those movements.
Downside, optics usually aren't that great. Limited in what you can manipulate in terms of settings. Usually, you
can set it. It's a fairly small sensor on it, and it's not going to be the same as a DSLR camera or a cinema camera or even fully fledged broadcast camera.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But maybe they'll come. Maybe PTZ cameras will evolve
They are
into
getting
more
better.
bigger beef. Like there is a Sony PTZ camera that is, it's about $1,000 or $10,000,
Wow.
and it has a 1-inch sensor. So it's much better optics on it.
It's getting
But the cost goes up with that. So
yeah, for sure.
Stefan, hello guys. I would love you to have 2 PTZ. You could pretend to have 4+ cameras by storing several views and switching. That's a great idea, Stefan. In fact, that's kind of one of the things that we did at this conference we were at. We would set one camera on the stage, we would readjust the other camera, zoom in on the subject, and then switch to that camera. And then while we were doing it, we would
change the position of the other one. Yeah, and
so
you can
it's
definitely
kind of like
do
you're
that.
getting 4 cameras when really it's just 2 cameras. So it's kind of a cheat.
Yeah, and that's what our friends over at PTZ Optics, the guys who make this camera, they do on their live shows oftentimes, especially at trade shows and things like that. They have like 6 cameras kind of lined up in front of them, and they just sort of
they're kind of pros at
them
that
in a bunch of different ways. And so definitely some advantages there. But as you were saying, if you wanted to go to the more serious professional camera, cinema style camera, something like that, they don't have this sort of PTZ.
No, they don't. But there are
protocol.
solutions for that. So this morning I went browsing on Google, and I came up with some things.
Okay.
So if we pull up our my browser here, you can see, of course, I spent some time on B&H, and I learned
That's
about.
dangerous.
It is a lovely thing to do on a Thursday morning.
Yeah.
There's these things called CCUs, or what's it called? I wrote it down here.
Camera control.
Camera control units. I'm
Sure.
going to guess you as a unit.
Yeah.
And basically, there's one for like most of the popular cameras, the Blackmagics, the Sony cameras, Hitachis. They all have unique camera control units. And with these, they basically give you all the menu settings you'd normally get in your camera. You'd get it remotely.
But
so
it
you
is
could,
specific to the camera, or brand,
often it is, and
model
sometimes
sort of thing.
I haven't read enough about it to know if there's truly like generic ones.
Because that's the nice part about PTZ is VSCO, we mentioned, which is the protocol that most of these use, is VSCO over serial and over IP.
Yeah.
That's a universal standard. Like it's pretty much all PTZ cameras either support VSCO
Yes.
and or Pelco, which is sort of the other option.
Yes.
But those two are like the only ways. Like that's the standard. So,
Yeah.
And they basically all support it.
And it's also way more affordable. As soon as we leave this infrastructure and go into this land of CCUs and the next stuff I'm going to talk about, like your budget's going to go way above, I don't know, 20,000 or something like that.
Right.
So we've got these CCUs here which allow us to do our control over that camera.
Okay.
And then there are other tools. Let me see if I can find that.
Who's getting down to Scarhoy? They got good stuff.
Oh yeah, Scarhoy. Those are our friends there. They do controls over for our
IP and all kinds of different stuff.
and they control our Pearl products as well,
Yeah.
so we like them. I found this other company called RCT, Remote Camera Technology, and
that
they
looks
make
like a pretty fancy joystick.
they make control interfaces, but this is an IP-based control interface, and they also do control over these CCU units. So you can have all your network control over your camera, even a broadcast camera, and they list like a bunch of cameras that they cover as like these very popular ARRI cameras,
right?
You know, your C100s and your Canon cinema cameras.
Right.
So,
The real cinema stuff, though.
so it's a legit solution, and they have this cool thing. Another thing here, not that, that. Yes. So this is kind of like a sort of a PTZ solution for a broadcast
converting a big broadcast ENG style camera into PTZ.
Yeah. And then I went down a rabbit hole. Actually, I found all kinds of other ones as well. I'm going to see if I can find them as well.
But that thing looks pretty cool. It also looks really expensive.
Yeah, it probably is expensive.
Still less than the dental plan.
Lisa needs braces. Stefan was throwing in there, while you're trying to look it up, Stefan was throwing in here any recommendations for a budget PTZ camera, Logitech, Life Size, Panasonic, others, with NDI. Honestly, probably one of your best bets for cost-effective with NDI is actually probably PTZ Optics. These guys, they make a ton of different models, top end of to the bottom end of the PTZ range, but they have stuff with NDI like this one does.
Cameron, we can probably
they're fairly affordable for PTZ cameras, but Stefan, you're probably not going to get into a decent PTZ camera for less than $1,000.
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, anything less than that, you're sacrificing something.
I think you'll see it in your optics pretty quick.
And the build quality.
Yeah, there is a bunch of motors running in here.
Yeah, the motors, gearing, all that stuff on PTZ cameras is very delicate, and you do not want to sacrifice build quality on those things. So, right, well, exactly, Stefan. Just saying, some of the Logitech conference cameras don't provide HDMI out. Well, exactly, because again, with conferencing, most of those systems are designed around a computer, so most of the cameras are designed around USB as opposed to real video signals.
So they're basically webcams.
They're basically
PTZ webcams.
They're really fancy webcams. Again, PTZ Optics makes a lot of models. This one I don't think does, but they make a lot of models that'll do SDI, HDMI, and USB all on the same model. This one's more of an NDI, HDMI, and SDI. So again, when you go into the more higher-end professional ones, you get more flexible options that way. Some surveillance cameras are offering HDMI out. That is true as well. Although there, I would say your sacrifice on those is your image quality, your sensors, things like that. Funny thing about security is they don't care if it actually looks good.
They just want the shapes and the...
There has to be something there. It's not CSI.
Well, that's not true. They do care what it looks like.
But
to be able to recognize what's in the image.
But not to a broadcast standard.
It's not broadcast. If you're doing
not
broadcast
even to a live streaming standard.
You're on the cops, I guess.
A $60 webcam looks better than most security cameras I've seen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you definitely need to look at it. Martin was just saying, what can we say about the Logitech? Well, it's gone there. Disappeared in my chat. That's weird.
Logitech ...
My thing's disappeared. We were just saying about the Logitech Pro 2, I think it's one of their PTZ ones. I haven't used it myself, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah, they were beside us at ISE setting up, and they're really getting into the conferencing stuff.
They are. I haven't had a chance to play with
But I have to imagine
Logitech
that they're
camera.
not making that camera.
They're
it's hard to know.
It's hard to say with Logitech.
The world's a funny place.
Yeah, exactly. So, CCUs, if you want to do that remote
CCU
fancy.
and like I think it was a Vericam. I'm sorry, I should have done this while you were just chit-chatting.
Just had all these tabs.
I know, I had all
closed
these
them all.
Yeah. No. I'm not going to get into this because it'll take me forever. But there's like PTZ controllers where you mount whatever camera you want in it, and then you can control that.
Right.
And
Yeah,
theoretically,
I've seen some of those too.
Yeah, you could do. It's big in broadcast.
Big for sure.
Yeah. Because it's one step away from like the robotics aspect. But
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Then I guess we've seen at some of the ones I've seen. There's some pretty crazy robotic things too. Like
you don't say, do you?
Insane. Well, I guess we featured that a little bit during our NAB show.
Yeah.
And I guess the example I think you mentioned you were going to pull up was
yeah, let's watch some YouTube, everybody. This is the Bolt.
The Bolt.
So I know I saw this at, it's nice when it
perfect time to buffer.
Loads up for us. Yeah,
perfect
thanks,
buffering
time. This camera, that's not our buffering, just so you know.
Oh, sure it is.
Yeah, we could have faked it though if we froze.
We could have used the clip that we shot of the Bolt camera ourselves.
Well, I know I did have that somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
That's okay.
I don't want to watch this whole thing, but
the Bolt's pretty extreme though. It's a pretty extreme example of something that could be remotely controlled in theory, but in practical terms, maybe that's a bit.
No, people are not controlling this remotely, but there's no reason they couldn't. It's just a bunch of, like with IP infrastructure, we can control everything, George.
You can.
Everything.
Almost, yeah.
And then look at this. This is awesome here. They do this little dance. This video is actually about how they choreographed this dance between these two bolts. They're super impressive, and
the
really
movement of those robots is very impressive for sure.
Yeah.
That's
Cameron. We gotta scrap our.
This is probably a little more realistic for most people.
Yeah.
The bigger.
Yeah,
sort of
they make mounts
head.
that are just like a nice little tidy mount. You put whatever camera on it, and you can control over IP.
Right.
So I think I put in a description, like, what was it? Oh yeah, could camera operators become outsourced? Yeah, that's kind of a clickbaity way to describe it. But
well, I mean, a lot of people argue that a lot of the
it's another one of these jobs that might
manual jobs are going to be eliminated.
And maybe it's supplemented. so that you could bring in a hired gun.
Well,
who's
it
somewhere
starts
else who
with the guy sitting on the other side of the country.
Yes.
But then shortly after that, it gets handed over to an AI. So
Yes.
that's coming.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
going to be replaced with an AI, guys.
Really?
100%
You
someday.
weren't already in the
100%.
Yeah. How do we know that?
Everyone always
That's-
assumes we're robots already on live chat, so.
Well, in
you
fact,
know,
sometimes we
it's-
are. So like.
No. Not for the real answers. ATR Treehouse Production Management, that's a long YouTube name, saying
You gotta
PTZ
abbreviate that
Optics
next
has a
time.
mount for pro cameras to be remote as well. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
experimented with those, theirs. We've
They
only
have a-
played with their PTZ
they have a mount
cameras,
for-
but yeah, they do have some
Okay.
that they've done. Yeah, Stefan is just saying, before I buy something used, I dig through the manual online and confirm it can do what it wants. Yeah, so just like a lot of you guys always throw in chat questions about different cameras and compatibility with this or the other thing, myself and my team, we spend a lot of our day answering exactly those same questions about, does this camera work with Webcaster, does that camera work with Pearl? Most of the time, there's no way we could possibly test all the cameras there are.
We don't have an
It's
infinite
just
budget
impossible.
to buy B&H.
Yeah, exactly, and even then, they'd only carry so many.
Yeah, that's right.
So what we end up doing, Stefan, is exactly that same thing, is to dig through those manuals and try and find, because the marketing features list on a website will never tell you what's actually happening on an HDMI out or anything in particular.
Yeah.
You have to dig into the user guide to find it. So yeah, you have to dig it out. Glenn Ward saying, look at Rush TV. They have interesting robo heads. We'll take a look at that
Cool.
after.
Thank you
Just
for
because
that.
it's risky to open links on live streams.
You learned that the hard way, George?
Yeah, well, just in general,
Yeah.
it's just a rule.
Be safe.
Fixed saying having a bearded AI. Well, they haven't accomplished beards on AIs yet, but that's probably like 4th or 5th gen AI to have beards.
Really?
Probably. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
George, check your chat for the Movcam Helm. It's a remotely operated PTZ
That, George?
stabilizer.
Be
don't
more
have my
specific
chat
on
open.
which George, Cameron.
Well, the one I'm looking directly at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have my chat open.
Martin Lopez just saying PTZ Optics is the best price for the quality. Yeah, I think for the variety and range of cameras that they have, they can hit. They have something for just about everyone's budget.
I talk
that's
to
pretty
different
good.
people. There's people who a lot of people are really loyal to either Sony or Panasonic and PTZ.
Right.
PTZ Optics.
The
They say
Sony
they're
and the
little-
Panasonic stuff, they're fantastic cameras,
But they cost a lot
They
more.
are expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
They're very great, good cameras, though, for sure.
So in terms of for your budget, yeah, very good. We do have another way to do remote camera production. So this is kind of a cheat, this one. So the best way to describe it is to, we've got another comment
Yeah,
from Stefan
Stefan's
about,
saying MKBHD
Yeah,
had
he's-
some stuff.
yeah, I saw that he has a nice video about robots.
Yeah.
So one of the ways you can do remote camera control is, in fact, you don't move the camera at all. What you might do is capture either a 4K or 8K.
8K is fake. Fake news.
It's not fake. Well, it's inevitable.
It's
in any
inevitable,
case, and there's nothing complex about it. There's no like barrier to 8K.
No, other
It's just a
than
matter
trying
of-
to encode it.
That's just power and resources, right?
Yeah.
So whether it's 4K or whether it's 8K, imagine you have one giant 4K sensor like we have here, and you can close crop shots of it. So I'll show you, if you pull up the full screen, Cameron, I'll show you. So
Yeah.
this is a shot of my friends in the break room.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a
And
diverse crowd there.
yeah, it's a really diverse group around
So
here.
this is something I do actually know about, because this is something we talk about as a workflow and use case with our Pearl 2
Yeah.
with the 4K capabilities all
So we
the
capture.
time.
So imagine this is one giant 4K image, and we do an HD crop out of it. We can get multiple camera angles out of
Right.
it. So remotely over IP, I could be cropping that
Right.
that shot without having to move a single thing in the room.
Right, and with a Pearl 2, that's even easier because it's already a network device. You can already access it remotely very easily.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is switch layouts that you make of those different crops, which is very quick and easy to do. So it can be a cheap way of doing that.
Yeah, well, it's a no fuss way because you have
Right.
no moving parts and no motors.
You just have to buy a really nice 4K camera.
Well, 8K, George, come on.
We can't
So
capture
this is our 8K camera image, just to show you how big this sensor really is and how many, how much zoom you would get out of an 8K.
Right.
It'd be good to know the math on that, like what a zoom in from a 8K down to
To full HD?
To full HD really would
I
be.
mean, 16?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
So here, I even have a little
Something like that?
Photoshop file that I was working with here. And so this is my 8K image where I have, and the pink is my 4K, or sorry, my HD
Your
crop.
HD.
So if we have
so
one
even in
giant
this
image,
shot,
I can close up on those guys.
There's three obvious crops right there, even if because no one wants to see the back of the heads.
You mean I'm not going to do this crop here of this guy's?
But you have stage left, stage right, speaker in the middle.
Yeah.
If you're doing things properly, you're already taking that presentation that's up on the projector natively, so you don't need that.
Yeah.
So you just need stage left, stage right, center stage.
Yeah.
And you're done, but you can do it with one camera and 3 different shots.
So all we need is an 8K camera, an 8K encoder, and a huge internet pipe to push all this footage up.
Yeah, something
so
to
that we can actually
capture the
see
8K,
it. We don't have to see it in
crop
great quality. And we can make the solution work.
Yeah.
So
so there's a few other comments
tuned.
in here I wanted to get through. This is a good one.
Chit-chatty crowd, I
just
like
for you today, George Burchell.
I'm a little nervous.
You should be. When are we going to add PTZ control to our web interface?
That's a great question.
Good question, and as I assume that's specifically about Pearl. When are we doing that? Stay tuned. That's all I can say at the moment. So there's a few different ways of doing things.
What I'd like to know is if people would use our interface to do that, or if they prefer to use some kind of a biscuit proper joystick control, which has a little bit more fidelity to it than a software-based controller. So that's something we're trying to figure out. So is it Marius or I didn't catch the name.
Marius, yeah.
I'd be curious to know how you would take advantage of that.
Yeah.
If you'd be happy with just a software interface for that, or if you really are like die hard on it buttons.
Yeah. ATR and Stefan are both pointing out that Mevo does this sort of cropping.
Mevo does that kind of cropping, and they do a really nice job of it as well.
They do with the trash sensor that they have in that
the garbage sensor and poor live streaming. But other than that, it's a cool.
Besides all the negatives about Mevo,
the user experience is very nice.
There is some positives to it.
Yeah.
And when it works. Sorry,
we're not supposed to.
We're being way too negative today on that. But my experience with Mevo wasn't very positive. Stefan was talking about Slingshot did some ways of doing some things as well. Yeah, there's definitely lots of systems out there that can do that, and it is the easy way. In terms
but it's
of
limiting because you can only go to a 16x, or if that's what we figure is
fixed.
You know.
But they're also fixed positions. It's not as easy to do that on the fly. The PTZ style is something you can customize on the fly very precisely with a twist of the joystick for zoom or a little move or anything like that.
Yeah, you can get a little fancy.
You can be very delicate with this.
Stand back all.
So what's the biggest drawback to that over IP, though?
Well, we've never used this over IP.
Well, something similar over IP. Let's say you're controlling this conference thing in San Francisco from Ottawa. What was the biggest drawback of that experiment with the current technology limitations?
Well, in our case, we weren't really dealing with fixed cameras that had been like well established. We went into that room the night before and set up cameras. So we didn't have enough time to really test and make sure that those cameras were in a bulletproof environment. So we had some camera shake to deal with and a few other little quirks along the way that ultimately made it not the most ideal conditions. So you just need to have it set up in a bulletproof environment, and ours was far from bulletproof.
Right. So if you have a fixed studio, it's probably more realistic.
Sure.
But I assume there must have been some latency of the control as well.
The latency was not bad. Like there was a little bit of latency. You'd push, pan left, and you'd wait 1, 2, and it would pan left.
Okay.
So you just get fluid with that.
But it'll
never be as fluid as this. But when we're talking about moving, I don't think people are doing very much live PTZ control. There might be some sort of slow zooms people do on this stuff, but we weren't trying to do any artistry with it really. We were trying to frame our shots and tune it away. I wouldn't want to see anyone zooming in live.
No, but I suspect there's probably technologies coming down the line that would improve this as well.
Yeah. Especially if you could just send the command over. You've already got a preset zoom where you just do a slow zoom in.
Well, presets is everything. I mean, it's certainly with PTZ cameras, and that was mentioned earlier when Stefan brought up that point. You could have 2 cameras with all kinds of different positions, and these controllers can be great for that as well. There's a whole number pad here. Those can all be presets, so you can just hammer through them very quickly without having to play with the joystick. Although this is the cool way to do it. Anyway.
It does look cool, yeah. Even I want to play with it right now.
Well, we would change the layouts to hide the camera movements.
Right. Well, exactly. You switch layouts to hide camera movements, as Cameron was pointing out. That always helps. Stefan is just saying you would always be on site and have a separate setup for no remote work. Yeah, and definitely that's the main way to do things today, but I think what we're experimenting with and what we tried to play with and explore was that very likely, Stefan, in the near future, it's likely that you won't have to be on site. You could probably take a kit of stuff, ship it to whoever your client is. They just plug in a box with power and a network cable.
We have customers like that now.
And that's it.
I talked to a guy the other day who ships stuff into an animation company, and he ships them to Pearl all pre-configured, and they just plug it in, and it goes. And because they have remote login, they can make sure it's going to be okay.
Right, and if it's PTZ cameras, they just have to put it in the back of the room somewhere, and you can adjust it remotely. Yeah. So that, I think, is probably one of the big things in the future is like you said off the top, one of the biggest costs, aside from equipment, is the cost of people and moving people around, getting them places. Not all of us are lucky like Stefan and live in continental Europe, where it's a short train ride to pretty much anywhere. Getting people across Canada or across the U.S. is expensive.
So let's wrap it up, George.
Sure.
Sorry, I shouldn't do that. The audio people never like it when I slam down.
Stefan was just saying.
Or when I go like this to my mic.
Stefan had one more comment here about Elgato's Stream Deck being used as a controller. With Epiphan products currently today, no, but it's actually something I really want to experiment with and play with, because I think it would be pretty cool.
It is a neat little, very configurable.
And they have an even bigger one now. They have 3 different models: the mini, the middle one, and then a giant one now. All the little OLED buttons you can program.
Yeah.
But it requires their software, which has to run on Windows or something like that, so to program all the buttons. But I still think it's something that should be explored.
All right, maybe right here on the show.
In the Skunkworks. Yeah. Speaking of which, next week.
Yeah, what are we doing next week, George? Tell the people.
Next week, my favorite topic for my favorite social media platform.
Actually, I remember. Yeah. Sorry.
It was written in a thing.
I didn't think you knew.
No, it was written in a thing I read 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
That was 35 minutes ago.
You shouldn't cue this up because you're all negative on it. I actually like it.
I'm not negative on it. I'm all in favor of streaming platforms, and we've mentioned it before. We're using it right now.
Yes.
But we're going to dive deep next week.
Yes.
That's the plan.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody.
No. That's too much of a tease. We want to explore LinkedIn Live.
Yeah.
What they currently do, what they definitely do not do currently.
Listen, you're supposed to keep the negative stuff to a limit, all right?
I can't help
We have a guest coming from LinkedIn, and we're excited to have her. And we're going to get to talk to her about what the future holds for LinkedIn and live streaming, and all the wonderful things that will be coming to LinkedIn.
The airing of my grievances?
And we might air a few grievances, but we're going to try to keep that to a minimum.
No, we'll keep that.
You can do that through the chat, all right? Because you're not going to be on the show. Are you?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm guessing you guys are going to keep me off of it.
You should not be on the show next week.
Yeah.
Send George to Northeast for the day.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm in. Yeah. But I actually do think it'll be a really interesting show, getting to find out what their goals are, what the plan is, how they plan on rolling this out.
And you guys can let us know if you think it's a good idea to do LinkedIn live streaming.
And of course, if you are a LinkedIn user, follow Epiphan Video on LinkedIn, and we're streaming there right now.
Right now.
And we'll talk more next week about how we're doing that and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow all the socially things on all the social media platforms, including Instagram, which is our newest one.
Yeah.
And Zoe's back there behind the camera, who is absolutely killing it on Instagram for us. So that's super cool. Yeah. Check out some of the videos she's put up. They're really, really nicely done.
Yeah, it's fun. We're having fun with that, so that's a good one. We'll see you in a week, 3 o'clock, Thursdays.
Always.
Bye.